Pop music chart-topping singles are often seen as a measure of an album's success, but sometimes that's not the case. In this video, we'll look at 8 successful albums with flop singles. Blonde by Frank Ocean. When Blonde was released in August 2016, it defied nearly every rule of commercial pop music and still became one of the most acclaimed and successful albums of its generation. Frank Ocean dropped the album without a lead single designed for radio play, and none of its tracks like Nike, White Ferrari, or Nights ever charted higher than number 70 on the Billboard Hot 100. Despite that, Blonde debuted on number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling 275,000 units in its first week. It was a cultural event, and its impact extended far beyond the numbers. The album's lack of hit singles didn't affect this influence. Frank crafted Blonde as a deeply introspective experience, meant to be absorbed in full, not cherry-picked for playlists. The production is cohesive, and the stream of conscienceless lyrics really connected with his fans. Songs like Pink and White and Ivy have since become fan favorites, even without mainstream radio play, with both now passing 1 billion Spotify streams. Nearly a decade later, Blonde stands as one of the classics of the 2010s. It continues to influence a new wave of artists, proving that an album's success can exist entirely outside of the metrics of traditional pop promotion. Blonde remains a timeless album without a single conventional hit. 4 by Beyonce. Released in 2011, Beyonce's 4 was a turning point in her career, a creative risk that prioritized artistry over chart performance. After dominating the late 2000s with hits like Single Ladies and Halo, Beyonce shifted gears with 4, a mature soul R&B album that became a fan favorite, while singles like Run the World Girls, which peaked at number 29, Best Thing I Never Had, which peaked at number 16, and Countdown, which peaked at number 71, didn't match the chart success of her earlier work. The album debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling 310,000 copies in its first week. It was a critical and commercial success that redefined Beyonce's career. At the time, many critics questioned the album's direction, calling its singles underwhelming compared to Beyonce's usual anthems. Freed from the pressures to chase trends, Beyonce used 4 to explore new sounds, delivering powerhouse performances on tracks like I Care and I Was Here. The production leaned heavily into classic R&B influences, marking a return to musicality in an era dominated by EDM and electropop. In retrospect, it laid the groundwork for Beyonce's later artistic reinventions. On albums like Self-Titled and Lemonade, what seemed like a commercial slowdown was actually the album that showed that she didn't have to rely on radio or conventional pop formulas. Today, 4 is regarded as one of Beyonce's best albums, and it has only grown in popularity. Its singles may not have dominated the charts, but the album cemented her legacy. Kissland by The Weeknd. When The Weeknd released Kissland in 2013, it was one of the most anticipated debuts of the decade, coming off the success of his trilogy of mixtapes, which had made him an underground R&B star. Fans expected chart-topping hits to match the hype. However, Kissland didn't deliver commercial singles in a traditional sense. Tracks like Belong to the World, Wanderlust, and Love in the Sky received critical attention, but failed to make an impact on mainstream radio or the Billboard Hot 100. None of the songs charted, as the sound of the album was far removed from the pop-friendly sound that would later make The Weeknd a global superstar. Despite its lack of hit singles, Kissland has since become The Weeknd's most respected project. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200, moving 95,000 units in its first week, and it was initially praised by critics. The album saw a slow burn success, going on to be certified gold by the RIAA. It was a necessary bridge between his moody underground beginnings and the stadium-ready sound of the Beauty Behind the Madness era. In hindsight, Kissland was a great exploration of fame and isolation. Over time, it has developed a cult following, with many fans now considering it one of The Weeknd's underrated albums. For some reason, Adaptation from the album is one of my most listened to songs ever. The album's initial commercial underperformance only adds to its mystique. It is seen as a misunderstood masterpiece, even though it lacked hit singles. Melodrama by Lorde. Lorde's Melodrama stands as one of the most critically acclaimed pop albums of the 2010s, but its singles didn't reflect that success on the charts. Released in 2017, The album served as a highly anticipated follow-up to her breakthrough debut, Pure Heroin, while Melodrama received near universal acclaim, even earning a Grammy nomination for Album of the Year. Its singles struggled commercially. The lead single, Green Light, peaked modestly on number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100, a surprise given its anthemic sound. Follow-up releases like Perfect Places and Homemade Dynamite barely made a dent on US radio, signaling that Melodrama was more of a critical darling than a commercial powerhouse. Lorde crafted a vivid narrative about heartbreak, self-discovery, and young adulthood, capturing the chaos of being 20-something. The album blended synth pop and piano balladry in ways that was innovative at the time. Instead of making songs designed for playlists, Lorde created an album meant to be experienced in full. It became a cult favorite, proving that Melodrama's influence was far deeper than the numbers suggested. In the years since, the album has aged into a modern classic. The project's initial lack of hit singles now feels irrelevant, as it has had a longevity few hit-heavy albums ever achieve. Emotion by Carly Rae Jepsen. Following the global success of Call Me Maybe, Carly Rae Jepsen faced a lot of pressure to replicate her breakout moment. When she released Emotion in 2015, it became clear that she wasn't chasing another hit. Instead, she crafted a polished pop album inspired by the 1980s synth pop. Despite being packed with undeniable bops like Run Away With Me, Your Type, and Emotion, the album's singles failed to chart significantly. None reached the commercial heights of Call Me Maybe, not even close, and Emotion was largely ignored by mainstream radio, leaving many to label it a commercial disappointment. However, it soon found a second life as one of the most critically acclaimed pop albums of the decade. It was a masterpiece in pop songwriting and production. Carly's ability to balance vulnerability with joy turned Emotion into a cult classic. Publications like Pitchfork, Rolling Stone, and The Guardian all included in their best of 2010s lists, cementing this legacy as a modern pop gem. While its singles didn't dominate radio, the album's influence can be felt in the resurgence of 80s pop across the mid to late 2010s. Carly may not have scored another #1 single, but she earned something arguably more meaningful: respect as an artist. Today, Emotion stands as a shining example of a flop era that wasn't really a flop at all. Hilary Duff by Hilary Duff. When Hilary Duff released her self-titled second album in 2004, she was at the height of her fame. Coming off the massive success of Metamorphosis and her Disney Channel stardom, expectations were sky high. The album debuted on number 2 on the Billboard 200, selling over 182,000 units in its first week, and eventually earning platinum certification in the US. Despite its strong sales, however, the singles didn't match the album's commercial momentum. Fly, the lead single, didn't even make it onto the Billboard Hot 100, and the follow-up releases like Someone's Watching Over Me and Weird barely registered. It was a rare case of an album becoming successful while its singles failed. The disconnect between the album's sales stemmed from Hilary's unique position in pop culture at the time. Her fan base, primarily young teens, were less driven by radio or digital singles and more by loyalty to her. She captured that devotion with the album's polished pop rock sound, leaning into edgier production. Tracks like Come Clean and Underneath This Smile hinted at her transition from teen pop idol to a serious pop artist. Critics may have been lukewarm on the album, but Disney fans loved it. In retrospect, Hilary Duff serves as a time capsule of the mid-2000s pop evolution, bridging the bubblegum sound of her early career and the more alternative edge she would later explore on Dignity in 2007. The album's singles may not have topped the charts, but its overall success, being certified platinum in the US, cemented Hilary's staying power beyond her TV fame. Madame X by Madonna. When Madame X was released in 2019, it divided fans and critics more than any Madonna album in decades. Commercially, it debuted on number 1 on the Billboard 200, becoming her 9th chart topper in the US. But despite the album's success, its singles failed to make much noise on the charts. Songs like Medellin featuring Maluma, Crave, and I Rise underperformed commercially, especially when compared to Madonna's iconic hits from earlier eras. None of the singles cracked the Billboard Hot 100, a rarity for the queen of pop. Still, the album's vision reminded listeners why Madonna remains one of the most fearless artists in pop history. Part of the reason Madame X's singles failed to take off was because they were experimental. The album fused Latin pop, reggaeton, and pop, but it wasn't designed for the mainstream radio sound dominating 2019. Singles like Medellin were too niche for pop radio, but found love among the global audience. Madame X stands as one of Madonna's most misunderstood eras. While its singles didn't chart, the project pushed boundaries. The accompanying tour sold out globally and even got her a Grammy Award. She proved that even without radio hits, she could still make a powerful album. Badlands by Halsey. Halsey's Badlands in 2015 marked the arrival of one of pop's most distinctive voices. The debut album was a massive success, debuting on number 2 on the Billboard 200 and earning multi-platinum certification in the US. However, despite its commercial dominance, the singles themselves performed modestly on the charts. Post, New Americana, and Colors all became fan favorites, but failed to break into the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100. On paper, that might look like a weak single run, but in reality, Badlands became the album that built Halsey's dedicated fanbase and established her as a defining alt-pop artist of the 2010s. What made the album such a phenomenon was its world building. Halsey constructed a dystopian universe around the concept of Badlands. The songs resonated with a generation of young listeners, even without chart-topping singles. Tracks like Drive and Gasoline became staples of that Tumblr-era pop. The album's success proved that strong aesthetics could sustain a career even without radio dominance. In hindsight, Badlands set the stage for Halsey's evolution from cult favorite to mainstream star. The album's streams have surpassed billions globally, even though it never had radio smashes. It delivers something beautiful, identity, and atmosphere. It showed that success in the streaming era isn't just about hit singles, it's about creating a body of work that stands the test of time. What successful albums with flop singles did I miss? Tell me in the comments below.